Today's episode is going to be super interesting because we have Tarushi here, who is also a very, very close friend of mine, and we met in during the Oxford program, and I've kept in touch since then. Tarushi, why don't you start by giving me a bit of an intro about yourself, and within that intro, tell me how your journey has been so far.
Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Tarushi Garg. Like Jayashree said, we met at college together. I'll start a little bit about myself, my professional journey. I started working way back in 2013. I was born and brought up in Delhi, so that's where I started my professional journey, where I studied till then. I was an accountant. I am an accountant. That's my hardcore, representation as a person. So I started my journey as a hardcore accountant with audit in KPMG, moved to EY. And after a long stint of about 8 years, I decided I wanted to do a little bit more digging into how businesses work, how fintechs work, and how companies are built from scratch. And so I decided to take a break from my professional career, do a year in business school, and then dig into my life with startups. So that's my short journey, but I'm sure we'll talk about more of it in detail in a bit.
Okay. So we spoke about, let's say, three phases, which is the core of your identity or your professional identity, which is you're an accountant and trained accountant. And then you took a break, you did your B school, and you came to Oxford, which is not a light feat in itself. And then you sort of pivoted completely from what you were doing, which is a very, very structured approach. And then there are rules and regulations that you need to follow, and there's only one way to do it. And then you pivoted into startup, which is there's no right way to do it, just get the stuff done, get the job done. So tell us a bit about how did that transition happen and what made you want to explore the world of startups.
I think you got the nail on the head when you said my work previous to business school was very structured versus now where everything is a little bit creative in the sense that there is no right direction to take. Every way could be a good way. There's no right path or wrong path. My interest began in technology. So back when I was working with EY, as an accountant, you work with a lot of Excel sheets, and there's a lot of like manual grunt work that you need to do. And even though I was quite senior in my career, either it was me or my team, and we would spend like hours working on Excel. And always at the back of my head, there was like, there needs to be a better way to do things. you know, it can become easier. I don't have
Yeah.
to like punch in every single formula every second on every second spreadsheet. And that's where I started digging into what are the tools, what's happening outside of the big four, a very structured way of working. What's the rest of the world doing? And luckily for me, I did pick up on a couple of projects back then when we were just getting into like automation and technology into finance, that kind of thing. And while I was not at the leading edge, I was not the harbinger of that kind of technology. We did see some of it flow down to the work that we were doing at the Big Four, and that was really exciting for me. That was like this was what I was looking for. This was one of the flags that told me there are better ways of doing it. Maybe what's happening is they're not percolating down to somebody like the accounting people who are just not very well versed with technology, and people who don't have that kind of background who can sort of adapt to technology very, very quickly. Maybe I can say very naively, I thought I could be that bridge. I thought what I needed was some time to sort of think and process and understand what's happening out there. So that was my sort of trigger into getting into B school and seeing like what the world out there was like, how other fintechs work, what is that correlation between fintech, how does finance and technology sort of work
Come
together or
together.
can work
Yeah.
together. Yes, absolutely. And pretty much a lot of all of this innovations happens at startups, or it's much faster at startups, and that's how I sort of got into fintechs post business school.
Super nice. One question that I want to ask you is you didn't just get into any fintech startup. This was the land of crypto and blockchain. And also you got into the time where blockchain as a topic and crypto as a topic was getting a lot of noise and a lot of bad press. Um, and also that's where all the frontier innovation was happening. People are trying to reimagine how the world works. Was the bad press, the crypto bros, was that even a consideration for you while you made the decision to get in? And so a continuation to that question is, how did you break into the world of startups in a completely new geography? Was that challenging? So maybe you could tell us, also for the listeners who might also want to sort of pivot from their former career into the new world of crypto, fintech, startup field. Maybe you could share some light on how that transition happened, and how did you do that? Yeah.
Yeah. Let me answer your second question first. Getting into startups was difficult, but it wasn't that difficult because it was just one step at a time. So it didn't really I didn't really design this career for myself, honestly. I just bumped into it in the sense that one project, doing one entrepreneurial project at business school, or then hanging out with somebody who worked at another startup and then understanding what they did, and then helping other, founders that I met during my period in Oxford, helping them out with their problems. So I just like bumped from one problem to another and one startup to another till the time I realized that I had enough experience to sort of get myself into like a proper job at a startup, and also that I sort of I'd seen enough to know that I might like this, I might enjoy this. It's new, it's exciting, and more importantly, it's problem solving, at its best. So that was really exciting for me. To your first question, crypto and blockchain and all of that being very um, both very like niche and new for everyone, but also scary in a bit
Yeah.
because when I did start here, right, there was a big crypto winter that was happening, and things were just not looking great. I think what helped in my case was that I knew pretty much nothing. I started with a blank slate. Did I knew enough as a layman. I knew what it was about, but I didn't know the nitty gritties. I was not a Bitcoiner like a lot of the people that I now work with are. And that helped me because I didn't get intimidated by the technology. Um, it was interesting to me. I was curious. And the more I understood, because as you need to understand, as a finance person, as someone coming from my background, I didn't need to understand how the technology worked. I need to understand it, how the technology impacts, other aspects of the business, and it impacts, in my case particularly, how does it impact finance? So as long as I understood that much, it was enough. And the more that I got into it, the more I realized, to be really honest, blockchain is nothing but accounting. It's the balancing of letters. So, I bumped into it with my background and I realized it was perfect because I understood it perfectly, because it's literally just balancing debits and credits, or balancing what you owe me versus what I owe you. And so it was a bit of a unique position in the sense that it made sense to me totally. So
Wow,
yeah.
that is amazing. I never thought about drawing parallels with accounting, the actual finance accounting and crypto. But essentially, the bottom line is it is just that. It's just that it's immutable, and nobody can change anything. It's whatever goes in there stays in there, and no one can erase it. So super nice. And
Absolutely.
I want to pick up on a few interesting things that you've said, which is you were extremely curious. You started with small steps, and then you were exploring a little bit of here and there, where you started speaking with a lot of people that were already in the startup world, and you were trying to get involved in small projects just to understand what the working rhythm is, and speaking to people about what you could expect or what they were doing in their daily lives. So that's interesting. And I also really loved what you said. You didn't design this career, but it just happened. You stumbled upon very different avenues, and something, it almost feels like it chose you rather than you choosing it, which is I guess a great place to be, and an organic evolution of someone's career. Super interesting. Okay, I'm gonna shift gears here and get into the
Okay.
core of the podcast, which is what have been the pivotal decisions or pivotal moments in your career or your professional and personal life? Give us an overview of some of these pivotal decisions that you've made, And after that, let's pick one challenge and sort of pick that apart and see why it was challenging, what you felt challenging about that, and how did you navigate it. So yeah, I mean, these are three
Okay.
different parts, but then let's start with what were the pivotal decisions that you've made? Yeah.
Um, so in hindsight, so many, but when
Yes.
I think I was, I was making them, I didn't think them to be these like, career
Pivotal.
changing, path
Yeah.
making decisions. And so thankfully I wasn't overwhelmed by when I was making these decisions. I think most of my decisions, if I can speak very candidly, most of the decisions that I've taken in my life personally, or here more specifically professionally, have come from a place of discontentment. It's going great. You're doing a particular job. It's going great. You're getting all of the accolades. You're getting your promotions. People love you, and then yet there comes a point where it creeps in this discontentment. And in the beginning, and because I've had a few of these till now in my career, I've now started to sort of recognize this curvature.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so, it starts with a little bit discontentment. You don't know what it's about. You're just like, this is great, but not really. And then you start to recognize what's the problem. Either, in some places it's the people that you work with, they're not exciting enough, they're not visionary enough. In some places it's lack of processes. You're just, things are too unstructured, and you alone as one single person cannot drive structure into a larger organization. And in other places, it's just that you feel like, there's so much more out there, and you've done what you could in this place, and now's the time to sort of get to a different pasture, and see what things are like there. So most of the decisions in my life, starting from my first job, literally, they almost always came from the sense of discontentment. And my process to sort of move on, or like intuitively, always been, what do I know, versus, sort of doing some sort of Venn diagram with what I know versus what I don't know, and where's that commonality, and where can I add value to an organization, find that commonality. And luckily for me, I've always found something. It's taken a few hits or misses, but almost always I've liked the roles that I've done in the past. There's never been like an organization or role where I felt that this is a complete bad decision. So I think generally to be grateful, I've just had good organizations that I've worked with, good people that I've worked with, and so that's just been what it's been, and it's been
Okay.
exciting so far.
I have to pick on something that you mentioned here. So while you've had great hits in these pivotal decisions that you've made, there have also been some misses. Why were those misses? And what makes you decide what is a hit and a miss?
I think, and I'm not trying to answer this in a very politically, correct way, but it's just, what we were speaking about a while back, when you say that, there's no right way or right path, there's no right organize. There's always never. It's not a miss because other things are wrong. It's sometimes a miss because the timing is off, or you're not sort of ready yet for the role that you were picked for.
Yeah.
So the few odd misses that I have had, or I felt that I was feeling out of place in the organization with people around me, I think it was because I was approaching the role incorrectly, or I didn't understand the brief correctly, and so I had to like take a pause. I had to reconsider what was asked of me, what my role was, what I was supposed to bring to the table, into a hit. So so that's what it's been like.
Super. Okay. Now, from all these decisions spread over the years, is there a particular challenge that was super challenging for you and you think others can learn from that? What would that challenge be? First, tell us, why was that challenge? Why was it challenging? Why was that important for you? And why is it important that others have to hear this? And then we'll go into how did you deal with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think For me, if I were to look at my career like all like in one big like vision or view, I would say the biggest pivot for me and the biggest challenge for me has been changing my mindset from, like we spoke about, the structured sort of work environment, a work environment with a lot of hierarchy in it, with a lot of processes laid down, with a lot of, you know what needs to be done, you just need to execute, versus where you're put into a position where you don't know what needs to be done. There are so many unknowns, not just because you don't know the job, but also because, the industry has a lot of unknowns, for example, or this space is just too new, and you have to sort of find your way every single day. And it is, sometimes it's really frustrating because you start your day, you want to start your day, like for me it happened, I don't know about others, but for me it happened so much so that I wanted to start my day with like a clean list of to-dos. Like I want my 10 to-dos, I want to finish the job, I want to wrap up my work. I'm not saying I want to wrap up my work at 5, like I'm happy to do like long hours or whatever, but I do want to know what I'm striving towards, or what
Yeah.
what my end goal is.
Yeah.
Versus now, or over the last few years, a lot of my roles have been where I have absolutely no idea when I get into work what I'm supposed to do, and I am, a lot of it is brainstorming into what should my priority be, because either I don't know what to do, or I know there is so much to do that I'm
You don't know
just
where to
so
start.
boggled down. Absolutely, I'm just so boggled down with okay, I need to lay down the foundation for finance, these kind of decisions. And sometimes it's very difficult to prioritize between strategic tasks and strategic work versus, things just that keep your company
Tactical
functioning
and
and keep,
operation. Yeah.
yes, keep your company moving. So to me, that change in mindset has been the biggest challenge that I have had to work on myself personally. And a lot of it required changing, I wouldn't say changing my personality, but upgrading my personality in a way where I had to stop thinking that the way I thought, stop trying to be that, a cog in the wheel, but really trying to be an inventor and like building the wheel. And that has taken a long time. And I wouldn't say the job is done. I would say like the job has just begun.
Wow, that is a super interesting challenge, because I think a lot of people face this in terms of switching the context completely, or not even knowing what are the parameters, what are the scope, or what is the scope of the job that you're trying to achieve. And then it goes from, oh my god, and then the imposter syndrome kicks in, especially if you're a woman and you don't know, is this just me or is everyone just winging it, what the hell is happening. So that's a very interesting perspective. Okay, so you spoke about the challenge. Now, what were the steps that you took? First of all, how did you realize that this was a problem? Because there must have been, oh, okay, so this is what I thought I should do, but it's not working out. And, I need to change my perspective. So when did that sort of bulb moment or a spark, how did you know that? And what are the concrete steps that you took to change that perspective? How deliberate was that? Did you sort of seek help? Yeah, so let's go into how did you deal with it, with this change, and how did you start working on that then?
I think the way that I found it was very easy to find out that it there needs to be a change, or things were not working out, because you get feedback. You get feedback from the people you work with. You get feedback from your customers, your partners, just anyone and everyone around you. You do get feedback. Sometimes the feedback is direct. Sometimes it's not so much direct, but
Yeah.
you can pick it up, and you know that things are not working either for you as an employer, as a working professional, or for others who are working with. I would say one needs to keep an eye out for the feedback. It might not be direct, it might not be very obvious, but and sometimes just ask, like,
Yeah.
sometimes just keep asking, and everyone gives feedback in a different way. So that is something that took me a long time to understand.
Could you
And I
give
would say
me
that
an
was,
example?
yes, I would say that sometimes when I was given direct feedback, I would end up taking very personally,
Yeah.
and I was like, why does this person have a problem with me? Or why are they making my life difficult?
Yeah.
But then as I sort of, the more I delved into it, the more I realized it's pure feedback to understand, to help me understand that things are not working. There needs to be a shift in the ways of working. And once I understood that it was purely transactional, my life became very easy. In fact, it was it was great because the moment I heard feedback, I knew that something needed to change and I needed to go back and do some work on the drawing board, and I could, sort of spend time with myself, figure out what was, what needed to change. I could go back to this person, does this work for you? And they'd be like, yes, great, perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. So, so yes, to answer your questions, look for feedback, ask for feedback, work on the feedback, don't take it personally. Everyone's just trying to make things work. And especially in the startup world, like you said, everyone's winging it, but also everyone's winging it for the best outcome or for the betterment of the company. So that everyone's trying to keep the boat afloat. So the more you listen to the people around you, unlike in my past, working setups where, like I said, things were very structured. You knew what needed to be done. It was merely execution. Here, it's like we're all trying to work like a unit, and we're seeing how we fit in the puzzle with each other, but also together to sort of build a bigger picture for the organization.
Super interesting. I also really like the fact that in a structured environment, your KPIs and the numbers, still the last T is given to you, and you just have to focus on that and nail that. Versus in a startup environment, and especially Tarushi, I know you didn't mention this. You joined as a chief of staff, and that role is as loose and as vague and as big as it can get, because there's no job description and you don't know where it starts and where it ends, and you just pick up every single thing that you can on your plate and try to do it and do it well, really well. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Okay, so maybe can you give us a concrete example of, okay, so you were in an operational challenge and this is what you were doing and this is what you shifted, or and also get into the consequences, as in, okay, because of that change and that shift, how did it get better for you? Or was there a material impact in the business? Was there a material impact in your work life or in your performance? And you also know you recently got promoted, so I'm sure you did lots of things right. And first of all, congratulations for that. So tell me a bit about one example of this was what it was, and this is the change, and this is how you dealt with the change and the consequence of the change.
Let me not answer that with a specific example, but let me tell you what changed, and how that change helped me. So I think, like I said, the biggest change was my mindset. The biggest change was realizing that something needed to change in me to make this miss a hit. And I'll use an analogy that one of my colleagues really brilliantly put up for us. For somebody who's working in the operations or finance of a say a tech startup, we can think of ourselves as Sherpas to mountain climbers. So we're not the ones driving. We're not the ones. We are the ones who are climbing the mountain, but we're not really. What our role is supposed to be, what my role is supposed to be, is to help my Edmund Hillary climb that mountain to the top. And I need to do everything and anything in my capacity to make sure that he doesn't fall, he doesn't slip, he doesn't, he's not hungry, he's not thirsty. I need to make sure everything runs smoothly as is possible. And that's my job and that's my role. And the moment that I realized this, the moment I realized that I'm the Sherpa to this company, I need to make sure that the boat is afloat every single time, which means I need to constantly check the ropes and ties are in place, everything's solid, and continuously check it. Like, it's not a one-time job, but continuously make sure everything is in place and in order. Once I realized that, my life became very easy, because then I could put myself into this role and I could make sure that the company is running smoothly. So in my role, I'm, if I'm managing the finance function of a startup, I would, there are lots of little pieces. You want to make sure that, there's food on the table, the invoices are paid on time, basics. You make sure like everything's running smoothly, there's money in the bank when you need it. But then you're also doing a little bit more strategy. Okay, if you're working on a particular product, how is that going to scale up for us, and what does our, let's say, what does our projections look like, for this particular product. And you need to allow the brains of the company, say the product team or the engineering team, and especially when, in the context of a tech team, you need to allow them to experiment. Some experiments will fail, some will work out
Moonshot.
great.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can't, your job is not to put like blockers for the experiments. Your job is to enable their experiments and give them the best chance of success. So once, like I said, once I realized this, then it became easy. So that is why this changed. And then it was, from then on, I think it's been really easy and really simple to navigate, and to make sure that I'm bringing value to the table. I am a key player in the whole, the puzzle that we are building together. And just generally that, there is just something great that we're doing together. So that, I would say, has been sort of the journey of, what was important for me.
This is such an inspirational story. I am honest, I got goosebumps when you said you are the Sherpa that's helping the company not die, or the one that you're working with. They just have to live, and they have to summit. They have to go to the summit. What a great story. Okay, now I have a problem with the story that you said. When you're on every single day, and you're the one that's ensuring and making sure everything is to the plan, everything is going smoothly, do you ever think that you're on 24/7, and then even when you go to bed, there's no off time, you're never completely shutting yourself off from work? Or do you also have other mechanisms to be like, okay, so this is my work, I'm done for the day, today's checking is done, log off, and then you have your own personal life, and then you get into that? So has that been a challenge for you in terms of separating the work and life? Or are you getting on with, there's no work-life balance, but I'm trying to fit my life or my work into my life, or life into work? So how is your thinking around that, and how do you work this out practically?
I don't think that's been a problem for me. And primarily because I've been working for a very long time. I started professionally working in 2013. That's been what, 11 odd, no, yeah, 11, 11 odd years now. That would have been a problem in the early years of my career, where I didn't know where to draw a line. But not anymore, because, you sort of, after such a long stint of professional work, you realize that you sort of learn to prioritize, that some things need to be done today, but other things can wait, and you need to let them wait, because you need to give yourself that breather, and you need to sort of, you're running a marathon, you're not running a sprint. So you need to save your energy, you need to save your resources, you need to make sure you have sufficient time for your family, for your personal life, for things that you enjoy outside of work. And that keeps you from burning out and going stronger and longer.
Fantastic. I have a tip to ask. So one of the biggest challenges for me in my career has been to tell my superiors or my bosses that, hey, I know this is important, but it can't be done tonight. And I'm gonna need a few extra hours to work on that, because if I understand myself really well, I know my productivity after 8 p.m. is shit. I'm gonna make so many errors than get the work done. But it's been very, very hard for me to really muster up the courage, go to my boss and say, hey, yes, this is urgent, but it can't be done by tonight. It's gonna be until tomorrow lunch. Have you ever been in that situation? So, and how do you deal with that? Basically, how do you set expectations, and how do you proactively communicate that?
I've not been the best at setting expectations. So maybe if you find someone answer this better, let me know. But but I think there will be days where you do need to work beyond 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. or whatever. It's just, things need to be done, and they need to be done. I think what helps in the long run is if you're able to be there for the organization, or for your, even if you're founder, if you be able to be there for yourself and your company on the days that things need to be done at 8 p.m. or after, then it's okay to say, then it's easier to say no when you're like, this can't happen tonight. This needs to wait a day or two. So if there is that healthy balance of both, then I think things get easier.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. Now, when I think about it, so there are those days where it's immediate and urgent and important, where those days you have to do what you have to do, and things can't see the light of the day, so they need to get done by the night. And you do that well, and you do that consistently over, let's say, your span of your stint with that company, and then people build trust, and they know, okay,
Yeah.
if I give something to her or him, they're going to get that job done. So the other days when you think it's not urgent, it's not important, and it can take a, it can take that
Yeah.
time, so then that works out. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. One last question.
Yes.
So everyone that's listening to the podcast wants to be more productive, and I'm a productivity geek. Without being productive, I love to hoard these tips. So give us a tool or a tip that's really helped you be productive, or do things better, or be a better person.
One of the things that I found, I think it's been more than a year that I've been using it, Superhuman. That's
Oh
this
yeah,
app,
the email tool. Yeah.
the email, tool. And I think that's fantastic because I think that's a problem that will resonate with everyone. Getting to like zero inbox
Oh.
is your biggest challenge. But once you are able to be on top of your emails, I think that really soothes your anxiety at work
Mm,
because you know what needs to be done. You know there's no like hidden surprises in your mail
yeah.
lurking around, and you're like, oh my God, I haven't read my email for like three
Yeah.
days. And so I don't know what's out there. So Superhuman has been absolutely fantastic for me personally. It helps me get to like zero inbox. It's really fast. It's really intuitive. I'm a big Excel geek, so using shortcuts for email is also like really intuitive for me. Like it worked out really well for me. So that's something that I would highly recommend. Another tool that I use, and these are basics, so I don't know how helpful this will be for everyone, but Notion is a big one for me. So using any sort of project management tool, whether it's Monday, whether it's Notion, whether it's Airtable, for me, Notion, it took me a while, but now Notion works great because it's a system in place. I can put my tasks in order. I can put timelines, deadlines. I can, I am also productivity geek. I love all of these
Yeah.
tools without being very productive, but you can tag your tasks to bigger
Yes.
projects, and then you can just play around with it. So that I think has been both Superhuman and Notion have been it's been like the secretary you need, in a way sometimes. So yeah, that's been really, really helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tarushi. This has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I know this. I mean, when I wanted to have you on the podcast, I know this is going to be fantastic because we have spoken about all of the topics before in private and cribbed about some of them. So amazing. Thank you again for your time.
Okay.